This is Eddie Hearn, Matchroom Boxing. You're watching Sporting Icons. You don't need to be anywhere else.
Okay, so I've waited way over a day now to give my thoughts on this whole Kell Brook, Terence Crawford fight situation with the implementation of Eddie Hearn's recent comments regarding Kell Brook and this particular fight. And I've been listening to what other people have been saying and of course reading it up on social media as well. And there's quite a few things, or at least a couple of things that people haven't really mentioned. So I'm going to try and tighten some of those strings a little bit, okay? Now, first and foremost, before we go too much further, I have Sky Sports, I have BT Sport as well. Now, what I don't have them for is I don't have Sky Sports just so I can watch Matchroom fighters. I don't have BT Sport just so I can watch Queensberry fighters. I have both of these platforms to watch boxing. So whoever's promoting it really couldn't care less. I really couldn't care less. And one thing that people are also not talking about, because people are going in on Eddie Hearn saying, well, we should have this fight on Sky Sports. And I'm with you, I would love this fight on Sky Sports, but only if it's free to air. Bob Arum didn't want it on free to air. Bob Arum wanted it on Sky Sports as pay-per-view. And had Eddie Hearn and Sky Sports have taken that fight, it would be on pay-per-view. It would be on box office at 4 o'clock in the morning, whatever it may be. So he's actually done everybody a bit of a favour. Because had it been on Sky Sports, you're paying 20 quid, aren't you? £19.95. Pay an extra quid for HD. So he's actually done us a bit of a favour by not putting it on there, because Premier Sports 1, who will be showing it, so it is accessible to us, is it £9.99? And you get the month of whatever content that they have. So he's actually done us a bit of a favour. He's actually saved us a tenner, has he not? So that's one way of looking at it. Of course, that means that you have to watch it on your mobile device or your laptop or whatever it may be, and not on TV. Unless, of course, you can stream it to your TV, who knows. But he's actually done us a bit of a favour, so let's not forget about that point for those who are going in on Eddie Hearn. And many people who are going in on Eddie Hearn, I am with you as well, but I'm also not in some ways. And I'll explain a bit more as this video goes along. Because for us, Eddie Hearn, the way that he was talking was, well, the reason that he turned down this fight and is not putting it on Sky Sports is because he no longer has a working relationship with Kell Brook. Kell Brook, his stepdad and the team and whatever else were dealing with Bob Arum only. They didn't involve Eddie Hearn. They didn't speak to him. They didn't involve him. They didn't ask for his advice. Nothing. They left him out of it and didn't contact Eddie Hearn until they were struggling to get a UK broadcaster. And we'll go back to the point as well. Why is it just Sky Sports that's getting grief and not BT Sport? Not ITV, not Channel 5. Now, for me, ITV, Channel 5, we can forgive those because they have neither emotional bias towards either of these fighters. But Sky Sports, Kell Brook's been fighting on that platform for the longest time. We should see that one on Sky Sports. Likewise, BT Sport have a deal with Top Rank, Bob Arum, ESPN, that before lockdown, any fights that were shown up on ESPN, BT Sport would have, and vice versa. So why is it that this one isn't? So let's not let BT Sport off the hook entirely. Now, the way that he's talking, Eddie Hearn, of course, is that he's saying, well, I wasn't involved, so therefore, why should I, when Sky Sports give me a budget, cut into that budget to pay Kell Brook, Terence Crawford, Bob Arum, when I'm not involved in the fight? Why would I do that? I would rather spend my money on my fighters. This goes back to my opening statement of I have Sky Sports to watch boxing, not Matchroom boxing. Of course, that's pretty much what we get. And of course, I understood that when I clicked the yes, I want to join Sky Sports. So, but the truth is, I want to watch it for boxing. I would have liked Teofimo Lopez, Vasyl Lomachenko on Sky Sports. I would have liked Charlo versus Derevchenko. I'd like quite a few fights on Sky Sports. And if it's going to be eating into the budget of Eddie Hearn, well, to be honest with you, that's almost saying that Eddie Hearn is only interested in putting on certain fights on Sky Sports if it's his fighters. Now, we can agree with that because at the end of the day, that is his job. His job is to promote his fighters, and it's his job to get his fighters fight days. If he's putting on or using some of that budget to show Terence Crawford and Kell Brook, then that's potentially a few less fights, or maybe a fight night that he can't put on with his fighters. We can understand that. That's his business. But what he's saying here is that he dictates what's on Sky Sports and what isn't. That's where I have a little bit of a problem, because ultimately what Eddie Hearn is going to do is, and let's be honest about this one, and I'll get into a little bit more detail as well, is that he will only put on fighters and fights that's beneficial to him and his company, not what's beneficial to you and I. Because if he's got, say for example, Ted Cheeseman versus Sam Eglinton, which was a fantastic fight by the way, but as an example, he's got that, he gets a little cut of that, does he not? He gets a little percentage of the entire fight event. The more fighters that he has on that particular show, he gets a cut of. If he puts Terence Crawford, Kell Brook on, he gets no money back whatsoever. If he'd have put Teofimo Lopez, Lomachenko on, he gets no money back whatsoever. Same with Charlo versus Derevchenko, and I'm sure Tank Davis and Leo Santa Cruz and whatever else may be happening. He's not getting a cut from that. So it is a selfish move, but it's also a business move. Now, when we get into Terence Crawford and Kell Brook, okay, so they left out Eddie Hearn. Now, that's not Terence Crawford's job. His job is to deal with Bob Arum. Kell Brook, he's got his own manager. His own manager is his stepfather. So to leave out Eddie Hearn and then come crawling to him, as Eddie Hearn would put it, to say, well, we can't get anything. Can you do us a favour and give us some of your money? Well, okay, but that's for you and I. That's not for Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn shouldn't be running Sky Sports. He doesn't work for Sky Sports. This is where Adam Smith and Sky Sports should have extra money to put on these kind of fights. At the end of the day, these guys are the only ones out there right now charging pay-per-view. Let's be honest. 4 pay-per-views since lockdown, in a period where finances are not great for a lot of people. Many people have lost their job. Many people have to take reduced hours. Many people have got into a lot of debt because they couldn't go to work. So it's not ideal, and Sky Sports seem to not really care. Now, this has nothing to do with the fighters. And again, this goes back to one of the points where Eddie Hearn, he previously said, well, why is it that people are giving me grief? Because Anthony Joshua versus Andrew Ruiz Jr. was £25 compared to the usual £20. I don't set the prices. Well, clearly you do, Eddie. Because you've now just admitted that you have full control as to what goes on Sky Sports and what does not. Now, maybe I've totally misread that. It's very, very possible. But for me, there's something a little deeper between Kell Brook and Eddie Hearn. No idea what it could possibly be. And I know that people have mentioned about the fact that Eddie Hearn, he threw Kell Brook under the bus and threw him in with Gennady Golovkin. Well, for those of you who've been watching boxing for around that period of time, you will have known for about a year up to that particular point, Kell Brook was calling out Golovkin. He wanted that fight. He chose to have that fight when it was presented when Chris Eubank Jr. didn't sign the contract. Did Eddie Hearn want to save the show and promote a Gennady Golovkin fight? Of course he did. Did he want it in the UK? Of course he did. Kell Brook was a feasible option, was it not? Sure, he's a welterweight going up 2 divisions, but it was Kell Brook that was calling out Golovkin for about a year previous to that. And Kell Brook got some pretty damn good money for that. Very good money for that. Sure, he had to drop back down after that fight as well and go fight Errol Spence Jr. He was beating Errol Spence Jr. until the other side of his face got cracked. Quite clearly, Kell Brook had something wrong with his bone structure at that point. But he's made a lot of money. And I know Eddie Hearn is talking about the fact that some of the lesser fights that Kell Brook was putting, some of the big fight opportunities that were presented to Kell and they didn't take. And he kept footing the bill at times and kept putting on fights for Kell Brook that, knowing full well the public weren't that interested in. So he was pretty much floating the boat for Kell Brook for quite some time. So he has shown Kell Brook a lot of loyalty. And Kell Brook is notoriously difficult to deal with if we're to believe some of the press. Kell Brook, not one for staying in the gym, not one for keeping down the weight, not one for living the life outside of camp. Not one for really wanting to take certain fights. Because he only wants to get out of bed for big fights. In other words, big paydays. That's what he wants. And there's nothing wrong with that. At the end of the day, It's called prize fighting, and you're fighting for the prize, and it's not always the belt, it's the prize. The prize is the purse, isn't it? So you can't really blame Kell Brook in some ways. So, I mean, I can see both sides of the story. Kell Brook, he should be going, well, I should be fighting on Sky Sports. Yeah, you should, but you should have also involved Sky Sports to start with, as in Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn shouldn't be making this a personal decision. Because one of the times that I sat down with Eddie Hearn and had this kind of conversation was the whole Wilder and Joshua situation. And he says to me that he's going to push out and not deal with Shelley Finkel anymore, because Shelley Finkel is making it personal, because Eddie Hearn would call him Shirley Winkle and this, that and the other. So Shelley Finkel was making things personal and was blocking potentially Joshua and Deontay Wilder because he had a personal issue with Eddie Hearn and he allowed feelings. So Eddie Hearn said to me that he's going to push out Shelley Finkel and go direct to Al Heyman. And he was right to do that. But now you've done the same thing yourself. You're allowing your personal feelings to get in the way of me, a Sky Sports subscriber, where I want to watch this fight on Sky Sports. Don't get me wrong, I don't want to pay for it. I don't want to be paying £20 for a pay-per-view. And had he accepted it and had he put it on pay-per-view at 20 quid, we'd have been out of pocket, considering what the option is now. But it would have been nice to have been part of the Sky Sports package. I think Eddie Hearn has made a personal decision rather than a business decision, or thinking from the position of the boxing fans. I want to watch that fight on Sky Sports. You guys too. And it should be on Sky Sports. It shouldn't be pay-per-view. And if that means eating into a budget, I mean, again, I don't understand. Why has Sky Sports given Eddie Hearn the budget? Because again, he's going to be biased. He's going to be giving fighters priority so he can make some money back himself. I'm not saying that he is making money back himself because, at the minute, because things are pretty tight. And because things are quite tight, there shouldn't be so many damn pay-per-views, let's be honest. But at the end of the day, fighters, they want to get paid, and it is what it is. But for me, I think that Kell Brook and Eddie Hearn, there's something a little bit more deeper. Maybe we'll find out one day, maybe we won't. But ultimately, I'm not really bothered. But it does seem that this is a personal situation rather than a, well, I think the Sky Sports subscribers deserve to see Kell Brook versus Terence Crawford. Sky Sports subscribers deserve to see Vasyl Lomachenko versus Teofimo Lopez and so forth. But because Eddie Hearn doesn't get a cut of any of this, we ain't getting to see it on Sky Sports, and that seems to be the problem. Anyway, that's my thoughts. You drop me yours. Click thumbs up, subscribe. Catch you all in the next video.